But now I'm very happy to introduce Eben from Quant AQ and Jim from the University of Leeds, who will be moderating the next session. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Anika. Can everybody hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
So great session to get us kicked off. And like Anika said, excuse me, the survey is really important because we want to see this maybe as a kicking off and keep this community going. So, and this conversation. So now we're going to move on to working with communities and actually communicating the data out to people who are actually breathing the air that we're going out. We're going out and measuring. So the first session is some real wilderness stuff. It's air quality monitoring in Skagway in Alaska. And it's going to be a tag team. So it's going to be Reuben Cash, who's actually in Skagway. He works with the traditional council there. And then Barkley Sive, not sure about the pronunciation there, who works with the National Park Service in Colorado. So they're going to take us from, think about local sources and some real wilderness observations. So over to you, Reuben. Thank you.
Excellent. Hey, good morning, everybody. It's morning here where I am. I hope everybody can hear me all right. I'm going to optimize my screen for video sharing and get this going. So hopefully everybody can see that. Good day. My name is Reuben Cash. I'm the environmental coordinator for Skagway Traditional Council. I was born on the shores of the Salish Sea in the traditional territory of the Luktamish, and most of my time in the environmental field, I've focused on studying freshwater systems. My engagement with air quality began when I was hired by STC in 2019 after I was handed a partially completed QAP and a chunk of money to purchase air quality monitors. So as a total greenhorn to the air quality field, I had to ask myself, why are we monitoring air quality in Skagway? So let's go on a little bit of a geographic journey to give you some context. Skagway is a small, isolated community in southeast Alaska. It's 90 miles north of the capital, Juneau, at the terminus of the Taya Inlet, which is an extension of the Lynn Canal, North America's longest fjord. Now, Skagway is arguably Alaska's most well-known cruise ship port. It weighs in at more than 1.2 million passengers annually. You can see from this chart, which was derived from data posted to the Municipality of Skagway website, tourism in Skagway has been steadily increasing over the last 40 years. The season begins in April, continues through October, and it brings with it a whole army of seasonal employees that more than doubles the local population, which sits at about 1,000 year-round. There's berths for up to 4 large ships, including 2 for the largest Panamax-sized vessels, and a daily visitation of 14,000 people is not uncommon. And if you look at that upper right picture, bear in mind the size of the town footprint. It's 4 blocks wide, 22 blocks long, steep valley walls, and not many places to go. So in the summertime, Skagway gets into the people-moving business. Seasonal transportation infrastructure kicks into full gear, including hundreds of coach buses, a railway system, commercial and private airplanes, helicopter tours, boat tours, private vehicle tours, you name it, there's a tour for it, and they're all contributing emissions into the Narrow Valley. And this is in addition to the 4 ships that are running engines from 6 in the morning till sometimes 9 o'clock at night because there's no shoreside power in Skagway. So there's been a handful of past air quality investigations in Skagway. In 2004, the city partnered with the tribe and the state to collect fine particulate matter at 2 locations over just about a year. And the study concluded that ambient air quality in Skagway does not violate air quality standards. However, it should be noted that over this nearly 1-year data set, the summertime has a marked increase in aerosols. The Park Service implemented its own air quality program, focusing on nitrogen and sulfur compounds. They were using these depositional samplers, but also arboreal lichen plots, since they're such good indicators of air quality. This multi-decadal study began in 1998. There were 2 more events in 2008 and 2018, and results indicated that sites closest to cruise ship moorage exhibited the highest concentrations of NOxes and sulfur dioxides, among many other findings. It's a great study, and I encourage you to read it. STC launched its own PM 2.5 study in 2020. We used these 3 TSI Dust Track 2 units to assess air quality related to the cruise season. We unwittingly initiated this during the pandemic, so we've got a great data set with 4 years of data, 2 years without ships, and 2 years with. And results showed that community contribution to PM 2.5 is less than contributions from cruise ship-related emissions, and that PM 2.5 concentrations were positively correlated to the number of ships in port. Another key takeaway from this program was that wildfire smoke was the primary cause for violating the NACs. So lots of efforts to understand air quality in Skagway. There's been interesting findings from the studies that warrant further investigation. So coordination of efforts was a logical next step. The park and the city combined their equipment in 2023 to establish a network of purple air monitors. And this filled the gap for real-time PM 2.5 data, but leaves out the gases. So the park and the tribe co-authored a grant proposal to establish a new monitoring array, which will combine the existing purple air instruments, add several nodes with gas phase sensors, and pull all the gathered data into a single public-facing dashboard. We were selected for funding. We were one of 4 projects in Alaska to be selected, and work began on the array in early 2023. So let's take a look at the array. It consists of 5 key elements. We have the original 10 purple air units that provide the framework for the network because they've got these sites established on city and park land. Real estate in Skagway is very scarce, so we need a place to put these things. And purple airs have a finite lifespan, and many were at the end of their useful life in 2024. So we replaced aging purple air units with 2B Technologies personal air monitors. 7 were deployed. These measure PM 2.5, CO, CO2, and NO2 using the same plan tower sensors as the purple air for PM. 2 of our original dust track sites were outfit with 2B Technologies AQ light units, measuring PM 2.5, CO, CO2, NO2, and O3. The lights are co-located with Quant AQ modular PM units, measuring all the size fractions of PM. Our 3rd dust track site was populated with a 2B Technologies AQ Sync, measuring PM 1 through 10, CO, CO2, NO, NO2, O3, and TVOCs. And this is really the brain of the network. It has FEM sensors for O3 and NO2, and near reference grade sensors for the remaining parameters. And all the other nodes in the system were co-located to the sync and adjusted so that the readings would all be synchronized. So it's an aptly named unit. And then finally, we have 3 all-in-one meteorological stations to measure wind speed and direction, temperature, relative humidity, and rainfall. So data are pulled from the purple air and 2B Tech portals and automatically screened for errors by partners at air resource specialists before being compiled and displayed directly to a public-facing web page. It's pretty great. You can hover over each of the little icons. Those icons will change color according to the AQI. Right now, it's keyed into the particulate matter. You can choose which sites you want to look at. You can choose your parameters. You can choose any range of dates up to 14 days, and you can export all the data. It's a really nice and elegant system, and it's really the key to this program. Risk tolerance is a very personal thing, and it varies widely across demographics. And the park and the tribe believe that individuals should be empowered to make their own choices when it comes to exposure to air pollution. We learned from our PM 2.5 study that even though levels are deemed healthy for most folks, we're still suffering from respiratory distress. So it's important to have this tool to make that personal choice for yourself. So we have around a year of data in the bag. We're really grateful to our partners at the park for helping the tribe and community of Skagway disseminate all this information coming from the array. And with that, I'd like to invite Barkley Sive to walk us through some of the data. Barkley, do we got you?
Oh, there we go. Okay. It
Hey.
showed that it was unmuted and it wasn't. Okay, so moving on, just to sort of follow on to one of the earlier talks, we do go out of our way to present the data that we are collecting in multiple different ways on the website, and we do make raw data in terms of CSV files available immediately to the public, so they can not only see colored dots, they also see time series charts, but they can also download this information. Quickly, I want to show the gases NPM from the AQ Sync at the STC site, which is our main site. And the 2 highlighted areas are the first one is during a wildfire event. And you can see if you just kind of scroll down everything, there's a lot of activity. The second highlighted area is when the cruise ship season effectively ended. And, part of it's a little bit fortuitous, but you can see a drop in levels overall sort of activity during that period. I mean, there are still things going on, but if you look at ozone in particular, what you see is instead of sort of the daily drawdowns from things like reacting with NOx, you see ozone, much less variability as we move into the wintertime. So next slide, please. And just to sort of illustrate, I put just the sort of completeness of the data sets that we have. I put on the two other, or overlaid the other two AQ light sites. Putting all of the sites on for all of the gases became too messy. This is almost too messy, but again, if you look at ozone and NO2, what you see is even across such a small area, there is variability in things like ozone. So getting the spatial distribution, understanding how these things are transported, reacting with time, how meteorological effects are influencing things is very important. Next slide. So I'm just going to quickly walk through a couple events to show that we had some nice events during our first season of operation to illustrate sort of some of the highlights, I guess you could say, of the effectiveness and utility of the sensor node array. So on August 2nd, we had a PM event, and next slide, please. That was driven by the train. So if you look at the right side of town, all of the sensors had sort of lit up to moderate conditions. And what that is, the train runs across the eastern side of town there. So the dark gray line is where the train tracks go and comes into town. And again, allowing us to assess the spatial variability. You see one side of town being impacted by the exhaust from the train. Next slide, please. And we can look at this. This is just screenshots from that day's event. And I just want you to focus on the top two panels because the first one shows the PM 2.5, and what you can see is the sites over by the train tracks all showed enhancements where other sites did not. And we get a nice spike of NO during that event too, which is in the upper right-hand corner. I do want to quickly mention that you see under the PM 2.5 is PM 10. There's a PM 10 event that is not related to the smoke plumes. It is activities down at the water department. So we see that frequently. Next slide, please. The next, and I think we all remember this, there was a large wildfire event on August 7th of 2024. Next slide, please. And during this time period, the whole city of Skagway lit up, including the site at the farthest north, which is sort of Inland Valley. Everything, the entire town was in fact blanketed in smoke, and ultimately the AQI was in moderate, illustrating moderate condition for the city. Next slide, please. And this just shows the fire and smoke map from Air Now. And if you look, the inset, again, this is just sort of re-showing that what we are seeing in town is also conveyed to things like Air Now. So next slide, please. And just to highlight this, we can see as the plume rolled in town, the top panel is the AQI, middle panel is PM 2.5, and of course they look like one another, and then bottom panel is PM 10. Again, water department has other stuff going on, but you can clearly see, that across the entire town, things responded to this event. Next slide. And finally, just showing the NO, NO2, and CO2. During the peak event, you have a large spike of fresh NO, correspondingly NO2. But I think just sort of from a visual standpoint, the most interesting thing to look at is that you see the amplification of the CO2 as the plume evected up from Pacific Northwest in the Skagway. So next slide. And in our continual assessment of sensor evaluations, we had an opportunity to look at co-located measurements between the AQ Sync and the Quant AQ modulaire. The modulaire is blue. I want to quickly point out the salient features where you can see the modulaire's CO is factor of 2 higher than the AQ Sync, and the ozone, you're missing half of the ozone data, and the NO2 response changes with time. None of this is unusual, it's expected, but it's a nice illustration. Next slide. And I'm putting this up here as sort of a teaser. We've done a more detailed analysis of response of electrochemical ozone sensor versus UV absorption. CO cals are off. CO sensors are finicky. And what I really want to show with the NO2 is you can see sort of when there's no NO2, you do get a response from ozone, which not all of this is well known, well documented, but we had an opportunity to really sort of give this a shakedown. So, next slide.
1 minute, Barkley.
Yep. Quickly, I will leave that up there and just say, I hope we've illustrated that in our first year, almost year of operations, when we've been able to put together a nice community air quality monitoring network to provide robust information to the citizens of the community of Skagway. And, we're always trying to improve things, but we feel like out of the gates, we've put something together that's working pretty well so far. Thanks.
Thank you, Barkley. Thank you, Reuben. Appreciate that real talk and that super compelling place. The ratios of population in Skagway are some of the most mind-blowing on planet Earth due to those tourists. So our next speaker is the fearless leader of the JustAir team, Darren Riley. And Darren will be speaking to us about how to effectively enhance community air sensor networks with a unified platform for public access and QA. Darren, you want to take the floor?
Absolutely. Thanks, Buffer and Evan, and great to see you all. I'll share my screen here. Make sure everyone can see. Looks like it's all clear. First off, Darren Riley, founder of JustAir. Our real focus is to really be that bridge a gap between data and community for healthier environments and really community-led action. I first off have to give a super heartfelt thank you and gratitude to all of us coming together, not just here in the US, but across the globe, to organize and make sure that we didn't miss the mark on this opportunity to share resources, share knowledge for the end goal of building a more enriched community for real clean air action. So again, super thankful and really excited to take you all on this journey. So for my presentation, definitely tweaked it a bit given the current context, but really speaking towards the aspect of how do we make sure that communities are leading the charge, owning the data, and really making the differences and asking the questions that they want answered. So I'll walk through where we are today, give insight into our largest network right here in Michigan, building that network. What lessons did we learn through that process, and what did we do to respond to those lessons, and also where the gaps lie, but also really give a glimpse to the future of what does it look like when communities leading these sessions, leading these, the frontier of what questions are asked and how to really propose intervention around air quality. So first off, where are we today? When I really think about this, I think we all feel some of the pressures given the current climate of things. The fact that we're pulling this together not in person really speaks volumes to the state of our space and the work and the amazing science and the years and years and decades of dedication that all you all have contributed to this space. But what I'm also really interested in is while we're really honing in on the data quality, instrumentation, process, guidelines, I see us really moving towards a world in a space where these tools and these frameworks are actually being put in the heads of communities where they are taking it to the next step of really solving those issues that are near and dear to their heart, right? And I like to use the analogy of thinking about the transition from computers to PC, where computers were largely held in the research and institutions, and who thought that we will have them in our pocket now today, right? Or even website creation. You needed a $100,000 website developer on staff, but now you can go ahead and go on these CRM sites and build a website from scratch. So how do we really make this more accessible, manageable to see all the amazing visions and art and creativity to answer the question that communities are asking? But before we start, I'd love to come back to that question. I'd like to take you on a journey of our project in Wayne County. So Wayne County is the largest county in Michigan, the highest rates of asthma. Few quick points, bullet points here is Wayne County had a F rating from the Lung Association in America. Detroit, which is situated in Wayne County, largest city, Wayne County, has the third worst, was noted as the third worst city to live in with asthma. The fact is actually that's the context of what brought me to this space is I live in one of those blue dots that you see here on this map, where I developed asthma actually 7 years ago as an adult, which opened my eyes to the issues and really propelled me to enter this space. So just setting the stage of why we actually are looking at what's causing these symptoms, what's causing the decrease of life expectancy for the most vulnerable communities, and quite frankly, how these health disparities are showing up through kind of racial redlining and other issues that are taking place from historical placement of folks in this county. And so what do we do about it? We have an amazing partnership with the County of Wayne. The executive leadership here is really trying to take a resiliency, proactive approach on getting the data, but also moving the needle on how we actually reduce the things that we can't control when it comes to local source pollution. So where do we start? We start really in the community, working through the 43 communities within Wayne County. Our team, if my team is here, they know all the hard work that it took from going to toxic tours, from driving around with environmental justice leaders in their car, looking at hotspots, but really working with the community and building a framework to really understand how we deploy the monitors. I think it's super essential as we deploy these instruments that we really interface with the community to showcase that this instrument is actually working for you, not against you, is not surveillance. In certain communities, there's sensitivity around putting technology, right near my house. What is that being used for? Is it impacting me in a negative way? We have to be very clear and upfront and transparent with that. And that really starts with building that trust and building that expertise, and learning from community members who know their community much better than us, right? Next step is actually going through the deployment and training. So we work with community members and we work with residents from all different walks of life, from returning citizens to folks who are just graduating with a GED, to understand how to install these instruments, follow the SOPs, make sure we have data quality control throughout our whole development process. And this is something that we'll come back to, but super essential to make sure we're training folks to create a resilient network when things go down or things are deployed, that we have a standardization and comparison throughout the whole deployment of project. And then we launched 100 monitors. It was very exciting. We have a JustAir portal called My JustAir, where people can subscribe to monitors, buy them, receive alerts, control the alerts, look at FAQs whenever they so please, but really having that data access and opportunity to observe the information right in the palm of their hands, right? And the really cool thing about this is just really showing the trust that was built between the county and also the government institution, and also the community. You get to see that fabric and that thread of trust really forming together, which you kind of see outlined here in the background of folks who may know Donnell Wilkins, one of the environmental justice leaders in our community, Teresa Landrup, and many others who've been on the forefront of a lot of this work. So when we go to lessons learned, so everything went exactly right. I think if we were in person, I think everyone would probably chuckle and laugh. Yeah, there are definitely some hiccups and some learnings along the way. And with our team, really the focus here on this next section is really to showcase, not to say that we solved the problem or check the box, but what things are we doing and what learnings are we coming up with to really mitigate some of these issues. So first start is multi-monitor network design and deployment. One thing that was critical for us is to have resiliency in our networks. We have to manage costs. We have to manage what do you call it? Infrastructural requirements. Can we draw power? Can we? Is it too heavy? Do we need two people to deploy that instrument? Right. So, and are we measuring the things that matter most to that community? Right. Are we going to measure a bunch of PM in a community that has an issue with SO2? Right. So we had to create a diverse network through our platform that we designed to really develop that. And one other thing here as well that we didn't realize, but is very important, is resiliency. So when things do happen that may impact a supplier or some firmware update that may occur, or you name it issue, we actually have resiliency that we don't lose the whole network. So really critical in building this multi-monitor network. We heard from others how important that is. Number two is field readiness and quality assurance. There's nothing worse than quality control. Nothing worse than going out in the field, not having the tools with you, not really having the frame of mind to make sure that we do what we said we're going to do to the work requirements. So one thing that we built out is a really simple, and we're not above Google Sheets and Google Forms, simple form that is device specific within our network, so that people have, if it's not us, other folks have the SOPs in the palm of their hands, and we also can check that everything was complete and done. What's also critical about this as well, when we're talking about community networks, is that we prepare folks for the unexpected. So you see us wearing the yellow safety vest, very important for visibility. We do recommend having two people. I think it's really critical for safety when you're talking about ladders and other equipment usage. Also, if you have insurance or permits, having that accessible and printed out in their pocket. In certain communities, that may be a concern when someone's asking for what documentation to say that you have the right to do what you're doing. We want to make sure our community members are safe, especially when it's not JustAir, but community members who are contracted to help do this work. Third is quality assurance and the big QA word, and incident detection. And this is all around uptime, making sure that we have data availability, correctness, and the whole 9 yards. So in the back of our platform, JustAir team, we've built out a multi-monitor approach to handle those corrections, handle those flags, low value thresholds, flatlining, sudden spikes, the whole 9 yards, so that we can constantly get alerted to do something about the network, but also make sure for long-term reporting, we can exclude or really go back and check to see that we have correct data. Again, it's following the best practice from the EPA QAP to make sure we have data availability, bias in the whole 9 yards, and really looking to improve this process. Lastly is actually one more after this, communicating uncertainty and trust. When a monitor goes down or when issues happen, we need to make that very transparent in real time. So we have our real-time dashboard. You see the typical gray dot. Community members will then see that there's a maintenance log. Things that we can improve on is telling people what the update status is. Are we coming back within a day? What are the SLAs? Describing what's going on within that instrument. And so this is something we're looking to improve. But what's really amazing here is that trust and that transparency really goes a long way. We got an email the other day, a simple thing where someone asked, "Can you change the name of my monitor? It doesn't line up with my community." We changed the name of the monitor, and the community member was wildly ecstatic for that. Something very simple to us, but that's, again, being keen and transparent and open communication with the community and how important that is. And then the other one that we heard from most recently was around multi-stakeholder data management and unified reporting. So a lot of different devices, a lot of different variables that are different labels, the whole 9 yards. And so we built our platform to be interoperable for the community to download that data at the palm of their hands, to their subscribe monitors, and also for others to really see that data within one section. And last but not least, what I'll mention is that the future is community. We built this, people use it for ordinances, for other opportunities to showcase policy, but the power is that what we built upon the network to really showcase from health for community awareness, AQI light, where things trigger, the light triggers on AQI readiness to raise awareness. From community research and health, where we're using inhalers. We just got an IRB 2 weeks ago for connected inhalers, mobile monitors, and stationary monitors to look at that diary for where triggers are happening to remove some of that risk and the traumas around exaggeration. Really excited to talk more about that. Community-driven policy, looking at trucking traffic and measuring the concentrations at the same time to inform local road trucking count. So this is all inspiration from the community, by the community when we develop that network, and we're building and innovating further and further. So all that said is that I'm really excited to work with you all and excited for this space. We move from the past of politicizing air quality to actualizing clean air. So thank you so much, and excited to talk a bit later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Darren. And just to remind everybody, you can join breakout sessions for all of this morning's meetings. I really appreciate the idea of the value of community trust and the utility of actually generating information that's useful to and for that community. So that's a critical gap that JustAir is doing a great job filling. Jim, one more to go.
Okay, thank you, Eben. So interestingly, I had 4 words just to mention, and that after Darren's talk: community trust, transparency, and we want to give ownership. People feel they can. We want, I think we all want people to talk about it in communities and things like that and understand it. So that's great. So our last talk of this session is a colleague from Imperial College London, Kayla Schulte. She'll be speaking with Caroline Murphy, who amazingly I met last week by email for a similar project. So Kayla is postdoctoral research associate at the Environmental Research Group at Imperial College. She's got a background in environmental social theory, and I'm sure some of her talk will include, she chaired a very successful meeting last week in London on communicating air quality, which was very well attended. So they're going to talk about the Breathe London community programme, co-designing meaningful data visualizations and messaging. And over to you, Kayla.
Hi, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, off you go.
Wonderful. So grateful and delighted to be here, and honestly, like really hard to follow Darren. I think the intro and the presentation, I was taking notes furiously. So really grateful to be at this gathering of people who are interested in furthering knowledge exchange around how do we advance the community sensor space? How do we advance the communication of air sensor and air pollution data? And I'm going to present an example alongside Caroline Murray from the UK. So you might notice my accent. I am American, and I actually used to work for the EPA. So it's an interesting position to be in, and I just want to again express my great gratitude for all the folks who really kind of set me on this journey. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for staff members who just inspired me with their trajectory of work and everything they've done to kind of put air pollution on the political agenda and push to advance air sensor technology and integrate it into kind of higher level national politics. So not going to bore you with details, too many details about me, but I'm a sociologist and a social researcher. So I'm just really interested in how different groups in society build knowledge about their local environments, about their communities, about the air that they breathe. And so one of the projects I work on is the Breathe London project. So just to give a bit of background, some of you might have heard about Breathe London or Breathe Cities. So Breathe London started quite some time ago now. It was an effort by the London mayor to expand air quality measurement across the city that leveraged low-cost sensors. So Imperial College London, the institution that I'm at, took over from the pilot phase and set up a network system whereby Clarity Node.js's are co-located and co-located with reference monitoring stations across the city. And they're used to calibrate the rest of the sensors in the network in real time to ensure higher quality of data. I'm not going to get too much into the QA/QC because what we're really focused on is talking through how we've tried to really glean insights from the various communities that we work with throughout the program and understand what different informational needs and values need to be met by air sensor data and air quality information. So Breathe London has grown over the years. It's now part of a global initiative called Breathe Cities, which is funded and orchestrated by C40 and the Clean Air Fund. The current Breathe London network consists of around 300 sensors spread all across the city. And the portion of the project that we're going to focus on today is the community program. So back in 2021, Bloomberg Philanthropies donated funds for 60 free nodes where we hosted application rounds, 3 application rounds for individuals, community groups, folks who are interested in kind of getting involved with air sensing, perhaps had never done so, and they could submit an application or we're kind of walk through an application process in order to get a sensor and place it in an area, a location of importance for them, a location of local importance. So fast forward, 24 out of the 33 boroughs in London are now represented by the community program. We have over 100 members, points of contacts throughout the community, and that's just what we know about. So it's really grown to be this massive, beautiful, diverse group of community-based practitioners who are working with air sensor data. And also just to clarify, the data is all open access. It's available for download as CSVs or through an API on the Breathe London website. And I'm going to get into it a little bit more about how we set up spaces to really listen to what not just the community program members, but kind of the broader network and community of people who work with or are interested in interacting with Breathe London data, what their needs were or what their needs are with respect to air pollution information and how we went about meeting that through co-designing visualizations, updating the website, ensuring that information is designed in a way to meet those needs specifically. So as I mentioned, over 60 groups have now undertaken countless activities to engage lots of different groups in conversations about air pollution and how to take action to reduce exposures, emissions. But today we're going to hone in on the work we've done to co-design meaningful data visualizations and messaging that works with Breathe London sensor data. So here are some photos of just a few examples. And actually, I think Caroline, you might be in. You're actually not in that Knitting the Air one, but so yeah, 2 general categories of what we're gonna be presenting in terms of case examples, and we're gonna start off with data visualization. So I'm going to actually hand it over to you, Caroline, to talk us through the brilliant Knitting the Air project, and just tell me when to skip to the next slide.
Will do. Thanks so much, Kayla. Hi, everyone. Delighted to be here and talk about this project. And at the top, I just want to say that we're hugely grateful for the Breathe London programme and being part of the network. It all started 2 years ago for us when we got a sensor and we put it up in a neighbourhood. And yeah, this project wouldn't have existed without that. But yeah, so hi, everyone. I'm Caroline Murray. I lead Knitting the Air. And I'm going to tell you a bit about how we're using knitting to visualize air quality data from 2 Breathe London sensors in an area called Poplar in East London. Next slide, please. So firstly, give you a bit of local context. This is the A12. The A12 is a major arterial road that runs north to south through East London. It's 6 lanes of traffic, so effectively a motorway, and it goes into a tunnel called the Blackwall Tunnel, which is a vehicular underpass tunnel that goes underneath the River Thames. Around 50,000 cars go through it every single day. And the section that just before that tunnel entrance runs right through Poplar, which is largely a long-standing residential neighbourhood where I've done a lot of community work. It's predominantly social housing. So these are some pictures I've got as I've been walking around doing my job. So on the left is actually taken from a bridge that crosses over the entrance looking north. So you can actually see there's a bus stop, which is an interesting choice of a location. And there's actually that tower block is a residential tower block. And then the picture on the right is a pedestrian crossing that's further up the road, which again, this is a way in which lots of local people use to kind of cross the road. And the Breathe London sensors we're knitting are located in a housing estate called Aberfeldy that is right next to this section of the A12. So for people living there, this is their everyday reality. And when we got our Breathe London sensor, we installed it in Aberfeldy. Our central question was, how can we help local people interact with and make sense of this data, particularly data from their local neighbourhood, which is really where the knitting comes in. I can't claim to have invented data knitting. There's a long tradition of knitting data. And actually, this project was really inspired by the Tempestry project in the US, which uses knitting to show climate change data over time. Which really got me thinking, why not knit air quality data? And actually, what if we knitted data for a whole year so we could really visualize what air quality does through all the seasons? Next slide, please. And this is what the data looks like. So if we focus on the picture on the left first, this is 6 months worth of knitted data that we completed. So as you'll see, we've got kind of 2 columns which represent the 2 sensors. So on the left, that column, the 2 rows, columns of knitting is the A12. So that's a sensor that's right on that busy road. And then on the right, you have the data from the sensor, which is on a road called D Street, which is a residential side street that's actually also opposite a primary school, which is right up next to the A12. In blue, you've got represented nitrogen dioxide. In pink, you've got the particulate matter 2.5. And basically, they're sewn together as a bit of a calendar. So it runs from March at the top through to August 2023. And each of those coloured squares represents 1 day's worth of data. And the colour tones show you how high or low the reading is, with the lightest tones, the baby blue and the baby pink, sort of showing where the readings are underneath the WHO guidelines. And what we found kind of through presenting data this way is it makes it very intuitive and very tactile. Poplar is a place where people like a chat, they like to meet in person, might not be accessing all the information on screens. So actually kind of putting it in this really visual way means that people can kind of see it and start to compare the data very easily between the 2 sensors. You'll notice they're not that different, which is a bit worrying, but also be able to see the kind of seasonal trends as well. We've even been able to spot the impact of like days where trains weren't running or when there were like traffic jams on the A12. Goes without saying, this is a lot of knitting. That picture on the left there is actually only half of the final piece. It's actually doubled in size since then. So it's made up of 2,000 squares. I love knitting. That's a lot for me. And fortunately, we've had an amazing community response with over 140 knitters helping out and knitting each individual square by hand. And the majority of them are local residents who either live in Poplar around that road or who work in the area. I love this picture on the right. This is, I've got to do a shout out to them. This is the Aberfeldy practice. They're a local GP based on the Aberfeldy estate. They have been incredible knitters for the project. They've collectively knitted over 400 squares, but also being a local doctors, they've really helped us centre the discussions on health. And this is actually from an exhibition. We did a pop-up exhibition at their surgery in November last year. So we had data on display, and then as patients came in and out, you know, going to their appointments, stopping by for a chat, coming in, looking at the data and kind of having conversations about it. And yeah, I'd have to say the lady right at the front holding the panel of nitrogen dioxide data, she's done over 140 squares. She's an absolute legend. But yeah, we've been out and about all across Poplar. Next slide, please. It's my final slide. And we've been taking this data out to lots of locations. We've been going to knitting circles. We've been going to hospitals, GP surgeries, schools, universities, having chats about the data. And one thing we've learned is once people interact with the data, they get very curious. They start asking questions. Why is it higher on this day? What's going on here? And then they started really sharing their personal experiences and reflections on the air they're breathing. This is and we started capturing them because we thought it was really important to gather this testimony. So this is a bit of a selection. But, you know, people saying air is precious, people talking about asthma, simply saying, I just want to breathe, really poignant. That one on the right, at the top right, changing the air is more important than anything so far. That came from a student from the school that the sensor is by. He told me that every child in his class has asthma. These are really powerful stories. We've gathered over 300 now, and it's actually become so important to reflect this feedback alongside the data and kind of bringing the personal experiences with the empirical analysis. And then, yeah, we're nearly done. We've only got 9 squares to go. And at some point this year, we'll be doing a big exhibition to kind of really showcase our work. And I'll hand back to Kayla. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I mean, Knitting the Air is such an inspiring and living example of how different groups have really taken this idea of you know, critically thinking about how to communicate information about air pollution and hold conversation and just running with it. And it's really garnered so much attention and interaction, and I'm so inspired by it. I'm not going to take up too much more time because I think we're running out of time, but I just wanted to highlight how we have gone about incorporating feedback from across the program from other groups into the website. So originally we had kind of your typical time series on the website. You know, this is how the data was presented, and, you know, consistently heard from community program group members and others that, you know, this wasn't sufficient. This didn't meet kind of key needs of, you know, what's important. The visualization needs to be easy to share. People want it to be a conversation piece, and that it conveys information intuitively, that it's impactful, and that it helps an individual explain and understand what the information is saying. And so we conducted a number of surveys and co-design sessions where we came up with a new design, very simple, also inspired by Knitting the Air, actually, and the use of the two-tone or the tonal colors to indicate when values are above or below WHO threshold. So that's something that maybe is a little bit different that we do in the UK and in Europe now more and more, is kind of really linking to the WHO guidelines, and excited to see how that might unfold in the United States. And I'll just quickly run through. We also co-created a very extensive list of actionable recommendations on what people can do once they, you know, are interacting, after they're interacting with air sensor data. You know, we consistently hear, like, you can't just give a reading, you can't just give a number, you can't just give, you know, say that the air is polluted without really tying it to, okay, what can I do? So we worked with different groups to kind of come up with this extensive list of actions. Please do check it out. And I'm not going to go through all of our survey data, but just to conclude on our key lessons learned. So across these projects, holding more spaces for conversation and collective sense making, which Knitting the Ear is really afforded, and also what we really put time into with the community program, and we're able to put time into because of the support we've received from Clean Air Fund. And having this kind of hyper-local, place-based approach, while also showcasing comparative, like London comparatively, what's happening with respect to air quality. So making sure that that's all included on the website and where data is presented and communicated. Always including actionable recommendations alongside air sensor data. Tailoring those actionable recommendations according to the social and cultural context of different groups. And then maintaining open and transparent feedback around how insights are being incorporated into this whole communication and visualization process. So yeah, with that, I will just say thank you. I mean, this is a complete group effort, and thank you to all of the brilliant individuals and groups who continue to work tirelessly to improve the air we breathe. I'm so inspired. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kayla and Caroline. I mean, the statement that every child in his class has asthma. That's why we're here. So, and in the UK, there is a phrase, knitting and nattering. Nattering is chatting. So, you think about what the people with the conversations that this is sparking, people will talk about it. And that's, that's the way to get these things out. People who knit together are never silent. They are always talking and exchanging patterns and things like that. So thank you to all our speakers for that session. So I don't know if Sarah wants to jump in now. We have our lunchtime breakout discussions. So we have a number of rooms that are available, and for people to go and talk. And this is where it gets a sort of bit organic, if you like. So we're sort of handing over, running just while these rooms are open to people to talk, because that's what we're here for.